Humans have been telling stories for thousands of years, and here's why. Stories activate our emotions, and whenever you combine emotion to new information, that knowledge sticks with us for a lot longer. That's why I'm on a quest to discover true modern stories by the people who lived them, so that we may all learn wisdom from it. My name is Cole. Thanks for joining me on the summit of Mentor Mountain. J. Benjamin Lyne is a guy who woke up one day, put on some running shoes, and made a sign with 4 words on it that says, "I believe in you." And he went out and just started running. Today we get to explore why he did that and what effect it has had on the community. It's a big one. And really we get to hear his full life story, which is just so inspirational. You'll be blown away. And I'm just excited for you to hear it. I know you'll like it. Now, it starts out with us talking about his early childhood. He was born in Australia, and we start out with him as a toddler in Australia. Enjoy.
So my parents passed away when I was almost 4. And, that's a whole story in and of itself. But we didn't end up with family, with direct family. We had some aunts and uncles, some cousins. They weren't really in a position to take us. Now, our family was me and 6 older sisters. And so as you can imagine, that's not necessarily, something people can take on. Now, my oldest sister was in college, but it didn't work out to have family take us. And so we actually went to live with a family in New Jersey that the mom was friends with my mom in nursing school in Australia. And they made some kind of, talk to each other. Hey, if something happens to one another, we'll take each other's kids, that kind of thing. So I don't know exactly, being 4 years old, I don't know exactly all of the details necessarily.
So the New Jersey family, it wasn't a formal adoption. It sounds like it was just kind of an arrangement.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So, we end up there, and, being a 4-year-old, we all went through this experience differently, right? My sisters being the age that they were, being older, having to deal with a lot of things that I didn't really deal with, but then me being 4, not really understanding what's going on, right? Yeah. I can remember my parents' funeral. I can remember different things. I don't know what's going on, right? I'm 4 years old. So moving to New Jersey and being with this family, it wasn't a formal legal, I don't really know. It was never a formalized adoption.
Yeah.
And they never really took care of our paperwork as far as, getting a visa, getting citizenship, permanent residency, never, none of that really happened. When I ended up getting out of there, it was a bad situation. That's why I say getting out of there. When I got out of there around right before age 10, we were illegal immigrants. And it took quite a while after landing with the family that adopted me here in Utah. It took a long time, multiple years before I was finally a legal, permanent, lawful resident in the United States. So that's wild. It's, again, being so young, I don't have a lot of the details. I do, my sisters know some of those, and we talk about it sometimes. But yeah, as a result of that, I am still not a citizen of the U.S. I'm actually a permanent resident, and that's because of a lot of different factors. My green card came out for expiration. I asked my adopted parents, "Why didn't you get me citizenship?" And they said, "Oh, we never thought about it." They were just, they just wanted to make sure I could stay in the country, right? Like get your permanent residency. Yeah. And then when I got married, it was coming up for renewal, and I lost it. And I searched everywhere for it, and I finally found I had to get a new one, and that put it out another so many years, right? And so, but recently I did go pass my citizenship test, and I'll be sworn in sometime here in the next couple of months. So I will be a citizen. Yeah, it's
That's exciting.
Kind of a crazy story of, just interesting circumstances.
Yeah, when you say it was a bad experience, do you mind speaking more to your New Jersey experience?
Yeah. Yeah, and I say it's a bad experience, and it was obviously. Anything terrible that you go through like that is bad. But when I look at it now, I look at it as a positive for the perspective and the things that I learned. But yeah. So living with this family, there was a few other kids that they had already, and they brought us in. Um, and it was really, it was an interesting situation because being in a family, whether you're a foster kid or adopted and things like that, even if you're adopted and fully loved and fully accepted, you always have in the back of your mind that you're a second class citizen, right? I mean, it's always there, even though it might not be true. You have that in your mind. But in a situation like this, we were treated pretty second class right away. I think he had been abused as a kid by his father, and that led to a lot of his behavior, right? But he physically abused us, was very, very stern, very restrictive, right? We couldn't go to the kitchen anytime and get a piece of bread if we were hungry. If we did, he would beat us. You could be, he has somebody over and he's discussing something at the kitchen table, right? And my sister is there and she's, says something and he didn't like it. And so as soon as that person leaves, then he, beats her, and just all kinds of kind of like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde personality, outwardly came off to people, and his outward appearance and outward personality was, hey, I'm a wonderful, God-loving, scriptorian guy. He's actually, when I got out of that situation, was actually the bishop of our local LDS ward there.
When Ben says LDS, he's referring to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, more commonly known as the Mormon Church, and a bishop is actually seen as an authority figure over that local community where the church is held.
And so, I think some people didn't really even believe after that came out and after it became kind of public that, that's not him, right? Like he's not that guy, because he would be so two-faced and just flip on a dime and be so abusive. So we went through a lot of rough times, and really being age 4, I didn't really know the difference necessarily, right? I mean, most of what I could recall up until about age 10 was living with them. So, it's just all kinds of, luckily not sexual abuse. It was physical abuse. But still, it takes a long time to get over things like that. I still, from time to time, I'm dealing with the effects of that. I mean, for years after getting out of there, if there was a loud noise, like a balloon popping or something like that, right, I would have a physical reaction to that. So it's been years of working through, and I would say, we're all affected completely differently in a lot of ways. But we're still working through it. I don't think it's something that you really ever fully get over in this life.
Yeah. I can imagine. I mean, because that's just, the balloon popping is something that you don't even have time to process consciously. It's more of a subconscious reaction. So that comes from a deep place. Was there a moment when you were living in New Jersey? So I have a 4-year-old, right? And when someone that young experiences death, I would imagine that it doesn't register to them exactly what's going on. Was there a moment in New Jersey where it sunk in and it really hit you hard?
Yeah, and it's hard to remember back now that in my old age.
Yeah.
The age, you think back, of your childhood, and I luckily recently one of my nieces, my oldest sister's daughter, she did a school assignment and was asked to do kind of like it's kind of like a podcast format or kind of like a presentation, but it's interviewing people and then like stitching it together into an audio presentation. And she interviewed my oldest sister, her mom, and one of my older sisters and me. And one of my older sisters, she shared an experience of what happened, when my parents were gone, right? And telling me about it. And it broke my heart. It shattered my soul. It was so, not remembering that. I don't remember it, but she mentioned that, hey, like mom and dad are gone, right? And I'm just like, no, they're not. They're not. And right, she's like, yes, they are. And like, I'm not, right. And just and all of that. So I'm glad to have that perspective because I don't remember that. But yeah, being in New Jersey, I remember having nightmares when I first moved there. And then times, I think, as you get older and you realize what's going on. Yeah, I'm sure it was that. I can't think of it more of a specific time where I really realized it, but just over time, just really started to think, I have my sisters, and as they get older and moved out, they're out there, and I really hate it here. And I know we used to have, great parents, and there's times where it's just like, hey, cling to a birthday card that I have because that's all I really have from my sister, and just wishing like I don't want to be here, right? Like I wish I was anywhere else. But yeah, it was more of a process over time.
Yeah, I would imagine. Well, thanks for sharing that. I know that's not why you're here, but just your whole story is really powerful. So tell me, at age 10, you're living in New Jersey. What got you out of New Jersey?
Yeah, so my sister being in Utah and being at BYU, which is why she was there for school, and also eventually got married to a guy out in Utah. She was kind of, pretty far away from us. We had a couple older sisters still in the area. We were in New Jersey. I think I had a sister. They lived together at the time, close by, like 10 minutes away, not that far. And it had gotten to the point where like we had some contact with them. They would call us sometimes and say, hey, or call them. Can we get them available for the weekend? Can we take them to the beach, or can we take them somewhere, right? And they would say, no, they're busy, and things like that. But we still did talk to them from time to time. They did come over. I did go, sleep at my sister's house over a weekend. And every time we go there, right, it's like, oh, this is all the terrible things that are going on. And they were planning to get us out. It was, at that point, it was me, my next two oldest sisters, the three of us. And so, they were planning, how can we get them out of there? Right. Knowing that it's not a formal thing, and there's no legal situation where, if we got out of there, that there would be a problem. So my oldest sister kind of helped coordinate that, but basically they came up with this plan to, basically on a Friday night, I would go to stay with my sisters nearby. And they basically said, pack everything that you can bring because you're not coming back. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I knew this in advance. Basically just grab like a black hefty garbage bag and, put a bunch of stuff in it. And I didn't put too much stuff because I didn't want to put all my stuff and like grabbing all my stuff and then, be suspicious. And they're saying, what are you doing? Like, this isn't normal. Yeah. So it was like put in, a blanket and then like put a bunch of stuff in the blanket, but I didn't get to take probably even half of the stuff that I did have, which wasn't a ton, but I didn't get to take it with me. And then went to my sister's apartment and then stayed with them for a little while. And I remember one of my sisters, her in-laws, parents are really great and helped out with Christmas gifts and things like that. Because I think at the time it was Christmas, was my birthday. I can't remember the time of year, but just being really great. And then eventually arranged with my sister to fly me out to Utah, and I stayed with my sister and then stayed with her in-laws for a good amount of time, for about 6 months, while they tried to find a home for me, right, and a home for my sisters. And my sisters stayed a little bit longer. They were actually out of town at the time. I think they were at a girls' camp or something like that. But yeah, I went and I left and I didn't go back. And they, when they found out, they weren't, super happy about that. And they came to my sister's work and, where is he? And she's like, he's never coming back. Right. You're never going to see him again. And my sisters eventually made it out to where we were. And we were, eventually adopted by a family together, the three of us. And that's how we ended up in Utah and got out of that situation.
That's amazing, man. So I would imagine the Utah situation was better than the New Jersey situation.
Yes.
With your family.
So it wouldn't take much. But I feel blessed. I was born originally with some great parents, right? I didn't get to know them very well.
Yeah.
And then I lived with terrible parents, right?
Mm.
And then I was adopted by amazing parents. So I had a good range of, cherishing my biological parents, but since I didn't get to know them much, having the contrast of a terrible situation and a great situation, it really led to a great appreciation and, overall like perspective that I wouldn't have had, right? Most of us that grow up in a normal family, families have issues for sure, but not these kinds of issues, right? I'm glad I grew up in those situations because now I feel like I'm a more complete person, right? Which has a lot to do with what I do in my spare time. And, what we're here to talk about in more detail as well. But yeah, I was adopted. I was living with my sister's in-laws for quite a while. Had a family I went to kind of, live with, and they only wanted to adopt me, and I didn't want to, be separated from my sisters. And then through LDS Social Services, we're able to find my parents now, and they adopted the three of us in addition to the two children that they had at the time. And they're angels, right? And she was going through cancer treatment, just wrapping that up at the time. And they're some of the most amazing people that exist on the earth, right? Just angels. And
That's incredible.
I've had them as my parents so gratefully ever since.
That's great. You can make a movie out of your life. That's incredible. Thanks for
You
sharing.
know what? You can make a movie out of anybody's life. You think your life, you think you have nothing to offer and it's boring, and it doesn't matter. Like, everybody has amazing stories for sure. But yeah, I'm glad that not everybody has this kind of story, because it's not the most fun to go through. But again, those things that aren't fun to go through, they end up either breaking you, or if you come out the other side, you come out a way better person. So yeah, for sure. Life is a movie for everybody.
It's true. And you hit the nail on the head with that. You remind me of a guy, his name is Dale Hull. He was on the podcast, and he was paralyzed from the neck down age 43. He was an OBGYN, and just the whole life turned upside down, right? As a dad, as a professional.
Yeah.
He was able to, anyway, do amazing things afterward. And he did say that life's greatest trials, or just great trials in general, they take us from 2-dimensional human beings and make us 3-dimensional. And we're just able to have a lot more depth to us when we go through those trials. It's not
amen.
And
Definitely.
Ben, after that, was able to live a pretty normal American life. He grew up, went to college, got married, found success in a career, and eventually found himself in Eagle Mountain, Utah, where he then found a friend who introduced him to running.
So we moved out to Eagle Mountain in that first house, and about the same, so I think it's one street over, but the same house number, John Gifford lived there and moved in around the same time that we did. And so I met him, and he ended up being a great friend, but he was the one that got me started running. When I went to his house, I went over there and like, hey, is John here? And his wife's like, it was Saturday morning. And his wife's like, no, he's out running 18 miles. And I thought to myself, like, I just, say that to her, but what kind of crazy weirdo runs 18 miles?
What a weirdo.
On a Saturday morning. It's Saturday morning. What are you doing? Like, okay, like this guy's nuts, right?
Yeah.
But he's that great kind of friend that like he does good things, but then like tries to get you to join him, right? So pretty quickly he was able to talk me into, hey, let's go run 2 miles. And so it's like, okay, fine, I can run 2 miles. I've run 2 miles before, right? But I didn't like running. A lot of people, if you ask them, hey, do you like to run? No, like no one usually starts out just loving running. So I went running with him, and he kind of tricked me a little bit, or maybe he wasn't paying attention, but we got 2 miles in and I didn't have a watch. Like it's not like today where we have our Apple Watches and everybody's got an iPhone, and he had like this giant Garmin watch. So he knew, but he's like, yeah, we're like, are we close to halfway? And he's like, yeah, we're 2 miles in. And then I thought, no, we gotta run back 2 miles. No way. So
That's so
I
funny.
say that he tricked me. I don't know if he tried to trick me, but it was a good trick because by the time I got back, I was dead. But then I like to be competitive. So he kind of ignited that competitive, like, hey, if he can do this, I can, I can get as good as him or I can beat him. Right. So we would go running
Yeah.
together. Eventually he talked me into let's run a half. Right. We did some smaller things. And then the
Nice.
next logical step from a half marathon is a marathon. And so we ran multiple marathons and did a good chunk of those together. And yeah,
So
it's a
what?
habit that I'm so glad that he got me started on that because it set me up for so many great things.
Yeah. Well, it's changed a lot of lives just from that side hobby, that exercise method, whatever you want to call it. It has, and we'll get into that in just a second. But what makes you want to go from because I've run a half marathon, and after
Oh,
doing
nice,
that, I
nice
thought,
work.
thanks. I thought, yep, did that. Like I'm good. What
I'm good
what
now.
motivates you? What made you want to go to a full marathon? And were there additional lessons in that?
Yeah, I mean, he had a lot to do with that, right? We've run a half, we might as well run a marathon. And it's kind of like, okay, next year,
Sure.
let's, we'll just run double. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's something, you have to think kind of twice about it because it's not an easy thing. I think it's something that most people could probably do. I mean, obviously, if you have a
Mm,
really bad disability or you have some kind of chronic issue, that would hinder your chances of that. But most people probably could do it. Um,
yeah.
I still don't look at it as it's something I kind of like, it's an accomplishment, but I kind of dread it, right? Like, I don't really, I'm not
Mm,
looking forward to the pain and things like that. So, yeah, we started training for it and pretty soon found, it's not too bad, but, I took the training approach and we took the same approach where you run like multiple 20-mile runs and that's kind of
mm,
like your max distance and
yeah.
kind of started training in the early part of the spring and then all the way to St. George Marathon is which marathon it was. And that's in October. It's like the first week
Mm,
of October. And you feel prepared, right? But you don't really know. And it's a long ways and you've never run more than 20 miles and it's 26.2. Um, but yeah, it was mostly him, really helping, really, hey, we're gonna do this and it's gonna be fine and whatever. And it was like, okay, John, let's do it. But not really knowing, you know, the pain. There's a lot. there's a
mm.
there's a good amount of. You get to past mile 20, and then mile 21, 22, 23, and you think I got 3 miles left. Like I hurt everywhere. But
Is it just kind of an out of body
yeah,
experience where you just let your body keep going and bite the bullet?
yeah, yeah, definitely. Like you do get to a point where you think I can't go. Yeah, I'm at 20 miles, and it's like I can't go 6 more miles. No way. Um, the reason I think really it appealed to me is being the person that I am because of my experiences and
Mm-hmm.
coming out on the good side of those experiences. Like it's a challenge,
Mm,
and I thought I'm gonna get a lot out of it. But yeah, I was running. I remember my mom. I've been told, right? She used to run 5 miles a day. She would run like every day, 5 miles, and that's more than I run. But I kind of felt a connection to her as I got into running, feeling connected to, this is something my mom loved to do, did all the time. And so I
mm,
feel a lot of connection with her. And I remember running the marathon and feeling her influence, right? And feeling that connection. So that was a special experience, especially towards the end when you're thinking like, somebody help me, like, please, anybody help me. Like, I don't know if I'm going to make it.
yeah.
I'm running down a hill and I'm coming up on a couple of people kind of, sitting in the middle of the road. And as I
Mm,
pass, look down, and there's a lady there bent over, and a guy, I don't know, her husband, somebody with her, and she's puking everywhere, all over the
mm,
road, right? And you see people breaking down, you see these things, and like I just need help. I need to be able to get through this, and yeah, it's
yeah.
it's it's quite an amazing experience. But it's
Uh,
it's more of that. The reason I did it is more for the accomplishment and just pushing yourself as far as you can, and then realizing, hey, like there's more to me than I thought. I can go further. I can go a lot further than that, and I can accomplish just amazing things. It's one of those things.
That's really powerful to prove that to yourself. I feel like it's a lot harder to prove to yourself how amazing you are. It's a lot easier to prove or to portray that you're a confident and capable person to others, but when it comes to proving it to yourself, it's a lot harder. So that's powerful.
Definitely. Definitely.
So how did the sign come about? What made you want to run around like a crazy guy with a sign?
Yeah, and that's how it seemed to me at first, because I'm not that guy by nature, right? I don't think like I'm not like a content creator on YouTube that's like I just by nature can be loud and go out and, you know, get in front of people, and that's what I love, and I get energy from that. Super extroverted, like that's not me at all. The way it came about is I went through kind of that progression, right? Where I started running, I ran races, I got into marathons, I ran multiple marathons. I did not run ultra marathons, and I don't want to run ultra marathons. So I just kind of got to the point where, you know, I've run multiple marathons, I've done these races, I've spent many years in a row training. I don't want to train anymore. Like I just want to run. I like by that point, and I tell people this, like once you get into shape, and if you have a friend to go with, like you'll go out with a friend, you'll talk to your friend, you'll run 20 miles, you'll be done. You're like, man, I'm tired, but I don't remember running. I just remember having a great time, right? Like it's fun to do. And so it has been ingrained in me that I didn't make the decision to run anymore. It's more like I'm just a runner. I run, and I don't want to have to run 10 miles today. I don't want to have to run 6 miles today, whatever it is, right? I just want to run. So I spent time, just running and just enjoying it. And so eventually, you know, you go through a progression as you go through life, right? And you go through experiences, and things build off of each other. And so I got to the point where racing wasn't a priority, which is convenient, you know, as you get older, because you feel slower anyway. And, you know, running fast isn't, I have to beat my time. It's a lot of stress, and you're kind of going down that decline anyway. And it's like, I don't care about speed anymore. But eventually I was out running, and I run in the morning. So that's the time when people are leaving their house and they're driving to work, or they're taking kids to school. All right. So you get people driving to work, or you do get a lot of moms driving around town, and things like that. So I'd see these people as they went by, and I get about, you know, just a glimpse of their face for a few seconds. And I just started to have the overwhelming feeling like, hey, I need to motivate or help motivate people, or not just motivation, but like I need to help people feel better, because I know what it's like, you know, to have a long commute, or to have some difficult children, and you're trying to, you know, get them to wear clothes, right, and get in the car and get them to school, whatever it is, right? There's a lot that weighs on people's minds. There's a lot that people deal with, and I can see that on a lot of people's faces, and you know, the whisper to my heart, right? Like, hey, I could do something to uplift these people. Also, I work at home, and I'm not out much, so really the only time that I'm really feeling any kind of like I'm getting out with people was in front of people while I run and while I pass them. So I got this idea just one day, like, hey, I could do something. I didn't know what it was. Thought through all kinds of scenarios, right? Like, how could I get their attention? How can I communicate something meaningful while I'm out running? Like, do I jump out in front of the car, right? Or do I, like, that's weird. Like, it was all weird ideas, right? Like none of the stuff really made a lot of, but eventually, like, I kept having this idea, and it took a while. Eventually I got the idea that, hey, I could have a sign, right? And I thought, well, that's hard to hold something while you run. It's annoying, but I could have a sign, and I could say something. And eventually, I didn't get the message yet. I didn't know what I was going to have on it, but I got excited one day when I got that idea, because I had this whole, like, my whole being was like full of excitement, right? So I got home and wrote it into my phone. Like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out and run. I'm going to have a sign. I'm going to, you know, help people feel better, and it's going to be a really cool thing. And people that can't run, I'm gonna, we're gonna stand on street corners, we're gonna get together, and we're gonna make sure that we show everybody, that we support them, and just see how cool this is. And I'm just feeling just amazing about it, and wrote it down. And then later in the day, and this is what happened pretty much every time, and I think this happens a lot with a lot of people, is you have these great thoughts, but then you have the doubts. Like right after that, you have the doubts creep in, and they're always like, you're going to look stupid. That's really hard to do. Like, is it even going to be worth it? Like, people are going to think you're stupid. People are going to think you look stupid. Like you said, crazy guy running around. What kind of crazy weirdo takes time out of the day to go do that, right? So,
Yeah.
And no one, as far as I knew, had ever done this. No one's gone running around with a sign. I've never seen it. I Googled it everywhere. No one's done it. I thought, well, pretty much every idea has been done. Like, if no one's done this, there's got to be a good reason for that. Right?
It's when it's quite a risk.
Yeah, it was just something that it formulated over time. And so I had this thought, even after I wrote that down. That was 2019. And I didn't start doing it till 2001. And so when I told it up, like in my mind, from when I first got the idea to when I started doing it, it was about 2.5 years. And what really put me over, it was always in the back of my mind, but what really put me over the edge as far as actually doing it, I think it had a lot to do with the current state of the world in 2020 because of COVID. And, obviously you lived through that, and everybody listening to this probably lived through it or knows if it's way down the road years, what that experience was. But it all affected us in different ways. I am not an extrovert, right? I would say I'm more introverted. Now I can be one, and that's okay. But if you say, what's your default, would you rather go out tonight and do all this? Would you rather stay home right now? I'd rather stay home. I'd rather do something on my own or something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of in between, but I definitely don't like putting myself out there in weird ways. But yeah, all of those things coming together, being locked down, like having to wear masks, people fighting over having to wear masks, people fighting over the presidential election, right? In politics, weird things with, people around just like, oh, this person's wearing a mask, they're not wearing a mask. Like, oh, I hate masks. Like, just all of the ridiculousness. Like, even some of my older kids, because something I didn't realize, because when I went to school, I didn't care who the president was. I didn't care what was going on politically, but they get it in their face all day, every day because of social media and things like that. And so, a couple of the older kids are kind of debating with each other on different sides of the spectrum. And we had, a family member pass away. There's just all kinds of things happening, right? We love to travel and go places. We couldn't do that. Nothing was wrong on the surface. Like, still have a great job. In fact, my job in the pandemic took off even more. Family's healthy. We don't have money problems, right? All the obvious things that you would look at and say, oh, well, you're getting depressed because you have, obviously, right? Like, your wife passed away or you lost your job or whatever it was, right? None of those things were a thing for me. Everything was fine, but I just felt empty inside. I didn't feel good. I just felt like weary of all of that. And I was still in a good spot, but just mentally, emotionally, it was just like, looking back at it now when I talk about it, it's, it was depression, I think, to a degree, not the kind of depression that keeps you in bed and I can't get out of bed and everything's terrible and I can't do anything kind of depression. But to me, it was my soul felt weary and I didn't like feeling like that. I remember thinking, like, in our church, you get asked to speak sometimes. I remember thinking, like, crap, I haven't spoken in a long time. And when COVID started that Sunday, they canceled everything and never had church, for months after that in person. I was supposed to speak. And so in the back of my mind, I was like, crap, I hope they don't ask me to speak because I don't have anything to say. I have nothing that I feel would help anybody. I feel like something negative is going to come out, right? Like, I'm just not in a great positive mindset at all. just at all. I'm just so tired of everything going on, and I have nothing to say. Well, of course, what happens next, right, is not that long after I get a phone call. Hey, can you give a talk
Of
in
course.
church? And I thought, geez, I didn't even say it out loud. Like, this is all in my head. And a few days later, I'm getting that call. So I say yes. I was given 2 weeks to prepare, and I thought I've never had 2 weeks, and I've never really
That's great.
prepared. Right? Someone asks you to do something, you kind of, okay, the night before I'll do something.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do it. I don't know why I said yes. I like to say yes. I like to help people out. And I'm like, I don't really want to do it. The next day I was like, crap, what am I going to do? And then I thought, you know what? I'll just say a prayer, right? Like, and my prayer was basically, I don't want to feel like this anymore. Like, I'm tired of this. It's just a waste of time to feel like this. Not productive at all. Like, I need some help. And went about my day. Nothing really changed. I went out for a run the next day, and I got about a mile into the run, and then all of a sudden it hit me. And it was, this time it wasn't just a little impression. It was like a piercing of the soul, right? Like forceful. I don't want to say club over the head, because it wasn't like that, but it was like, oh my, like this is something, this is like some inspiration, right? This doesn't happen like this very often. And it was like, you need to do that idea. You need to do it. And if you do it, you'll have something to talk about for your talk, right? And I got really excited, really, just kind of like the worry went out the window, right? I wasn't worried anymore. I was just like, this, I need to do this idea. Like, this is really going to help me. And not only for my talk, but it's going to help me, this is going to be amazing. And
Yeah.
I knew I had to do it at that point. It was a pretty powerful experience. Lasted, kind of a couple minutes, and got home from my run. This time, like, I told my wife about the idea. I hadn't really told anybody about the idea until then. Like, I'm going to do this. What do you think about it? Right. And she's like, I think that's a really cool thing. Like, like, are people going to think I'm stupid? Are people going to think I've lost it? I'm crazy. Right. And she's positive about it, but you still have the doubts creep in.
Yeah.
I said, I'm going to do it, but those doubts would creep in, but I plan to do it. And yeah, I ended up doing it.
So, first off, that's awesome that your wife was so supportive. I think partners make a huge difference in that type of thing. But was it just because that feeling was so powerful that made you, that's what helped you push through the doubts, or was there something else?
Yeah, that's part of it. And I think it's, it's all about, you're being prepared for different things throughout your life. There's certain stages in life, right? If those ideas come before you or come up, like, you wouldn't see them, you wouldn't pay attention to them, they wouldn't mean anything to you until you've gone through a certain experience. And so in my life, going through all those terrible things as a kid, coming out on the good side of it, getting into running, getting to the point where I really enjoyed running, and it's just something that I did. And then, getting to the point where getting a little inspiration to do something even better while I'm running. All of those things built on each other. And so it's a combination of those things that it's awesome to think about. And it's just awesome to do. Like, so many amazing things have happened since.
Yeah. Well, you've definitely changed a lot of lives. Do you mind telling us what the first run was like?
Yeah.
What happened?
You get those butterflies before you perform, or you do something in front of people, whatever. You're just like, I'm getting like that times 10, thinking, man, I don't want to do this. This is it's going to go weird, and people are going to think I'm crazy still. And then I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to go out the door. So I walk out the door, walking down my yard. I always walk to the corner, kind of warm up a little bit, and then I run. And it's the time the kids are going to school. And so, there's a neighborhood kid coming down the street, and I see him, and just in a split second in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I got to do it. So, here's my sign, right? And he looks at me and smiles. So I thought, okay, that's not too bad. And I walk down to the corner, start my run on my watch, and start running. I see another kid, and she smiles at me. And then I see a car, and I get really excited, right? So I'm holding it up above my head, and I didn't plan to do that. I just wanted to run with it down here. I didn't think it was really possible to run for a while doing this, but apparently it is, because I do it now.
It just got a lot of energy.
Right? You get excited, right? You're just like, I just want to do it. And so I did that. Got, smiles and a honk, and just lots of awesome reactions from people. When you run, sometimes you get, the runner's high, or you get really the endorphins flowing, and you really feel good. And so I was just feeling really good. And I got halfway through my run, which is 2.5 miles. I was going to run like 5 miles. And then I thought, why did I do that? Because I am not feeling good. Like, I'm excited, but my heart rate, I look at my watch, and my heart rate was at like high 170s or 180 or something like that, right? It was in the 170s. And usually if I'm pushing myself, I'm in the 150s. Sick. Yeah. So I'm thinking, this is a huge load on my body that I don't usually have, and I don't feel good. I'm not going to be able to make it back, because I was turning around, kind of running not the same route, but we're coming out onto the highway where there's even more traffic. And I thought, I don't know if I can make this. And I did.
Nice.
I did make it home, but I did hold it up, as much as I could, which was, anytime there's a car, I would hold it up above my head. And then if the line of cars is gone, there's nobody around, I'd bring it down. And I did it. And it was a lot of fun. I did it for those couple weeks before, I gave my talk, right? And I gave a talk on it, and just, it went really well. And then I kept doing it. But that first run was, it was a pretty fun thing thinking back on it. It's that time where I finally said, okay, enough with these dumb doubts, enough with these, I'm just going to do it. I don't know if it's going to work. I'm just going to do it. Like, just get it out of the way and do it. And I'm glad I did. It's too bad I waited so long, but I think I had to go through those experiences to get to that point where I actually would do it. So it's just been amazing.
Oh, that's incredible, man. I remember first seeing you, and it was after a super long day, and I was just overwhelmed with work, and seeing that, it definitely changed my night. It gave me more energy, because it took me out of the state that I was in. Because you mentioned that, people are going to work, or they're taking kids to school, and maybe had a hard time getting clothes on their kids, and your brain goes into a certain state at that point where you're just kind of going through the motions, or making sure you have everything, or just stressing about the small things. And that's what I was doing when I first saw you. I've seen you a couple of times, and every time it makes me smile. And it took me out of that state. And it was just like a snap of the fingers, and it felt like it just recalibrated how I should be thinking. And
thanks for sharing that.
A lot of people.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. I get a lot of joy out of it, right? But I didn't realize what you just explained. I've never been out driving and seen myself, right? So.
Right.
I haven't had that experience, but I get a lot of, when people share, right, I get stories like this, and it's like, what's more important than that, right? If I can help someone, if I can just be that little spark for a person, like, nothing else even matters, right? It's the most important thing in life is people. And like you were talking about, right? You're thinking about and worrying about all of these things that really, like, in the end, they really don't matter. But man, they stress us out, and they worry us, and you get kind of in this just like, got to go here, I got to do this. Like, I'm so tired of this. I'm frustrated at this person or this circumstance or whatever it is. And what we don't realize is, like, where we have all of that amazingness and greatness, like, it's in us. It's already there. And it's like somebody's pulled they pulled the wool over our eyes, right? Like, we're amazing. We are all amazing, but we don't remember it as often as we need to. And sometimes all we need is just some external validation. and it's a reminder. It's not, anything. I'm not teaching anybody anything new. It's just like, I believe in you. Oh yeah, I am great. I am cool. I can do a lot. Like, we forget it, and that message is just a reminder that you're already amazing. You're being too hard on yourself. You're getting caught up in things that don't matter. Just like when I went through the process, right? The doubts and the lies, they are lies. Things aren't as bad as they seem. Things, you can do more than you think, right? We know that, but we forget it every day. We forget. And if somebody else reminds us, all it takes is this. Like, what I've learned is that most people may feel down in the dumps and rock bottom, but really are this close to feeling better. And all I do is help spark that connection, and they make the connection in the few seconds that I see them, and then they do everything. I'm barely doing anything, but it's coming from a place that's meaningful, because they see this weird guy. Why is he on the side of the road struggling, right? They see this struggling guy to hold the sign up, and that means a lot, because that guy's taking time out of his day to go out of his way to get his heart rate up to 170 or whatever it was. So you tell me this, right? And that resonates. It's more than just a sign on the side of the road. It's more than a t-shirt. There's a person attached to it. He's making effort. And I didn't fully understand that, especially at first, how powerful that was. And it's so cool to learn what I've learned over the last couple of years about that. And I have, like, stories that you shared, those are gold to me, right? Those are like my treasures. I try to save as many as I can. People post and there's tons of comments or whatever it is. I save that, right? I go save it as a PDF, and I save it and I read them, because it's just so fun. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that I'll never hear the stories, but even the small percentage I've heard, I mean, I have hundreds, and
That's awesome.
That's the problem that I talked about, that you saw in my other interview, is that I don't want to work anymore. I just want to do this. Right? There's so many other things I want to do, because I get so much out of it, and it's such a joy. Because I get to be you kind of used as a tool, right, to help all of these people, and it's awesome. It's hard to explain, but it's just awesome.
Well, yeah, and sometimes it's a small spark for somebody, and sometimes it's a huge bang from the other stories that I've heard you tell. And do you mind, I guess, at what point did you realize you holding this sign was a lot bigger than you giving a talk in church?
I was training for this run. I was about 9 miles into like a 10-mile run. And when I do those longer runs, I like to break up the monotony by not running a loop, like leaving the house, running, coming back. I'll say, hey, to my wife, can you come pick me up in like an hour, right? Or whatever the distance is. And I'll be at, I'll be in Lehigh, I'll be at Macy's or whatever. So this is a run to Macy's. And I got down, I was on Main Street, and I saw a guy turn around. So cars going this way, and then they turn around and park on facing me about 100 yards up ahead. And I'd had a few people stop and thank me. And, but I really wasn't sure, what was going on, because you never know, how people react in public to things. So I was a little nervous about it, but I got up and he rolled down his window, and I went and crouched over, and he was in tears. And he said, hey brother, I was driving around. I met with my therapist recently, and I'm dealing with some things, but I was out driving around, and I had just made the decision that I was going to end my life. And I made that decision, and then I saw you right after that. I saw you with your sign. And he said that it snapped him right out of that, right? It completely changed his mindset, and he decided that he wasn't going to do it. It completely, 180-degree turn. And hearing that, I was breaking down, emotionally. Such a powerful thing. I knew that, it was helping people to a degree. Some people had said, hey, you're probably saving lives. You're probably, really helping. And I thought, yeah, okay, saving lives, I wouldn't go that far. But no, he told me I had saved his life by doing that. And so that was a really defining moment. Up until then, was, and really, I think I was doing that run. Sometimes you get on long runs, right? And you just kind of think, and there's nothing else to do because you're out just running by yourself. And I was thinking,
Yeah.
like, is this really having that much of an impact, right? Because it's having an impact on my body physically.
Yeah.
Is it worth the effort still, right? Maybe I'll do it occasionally, eventually. I don't know if I can do this for years or whatever. After that experience, there was no question anymore. It was, I'm never going to stop doing it. I'm going to do it every time I run. I have been doing it every time I run, but I'm going to continue to do that. I'm going to do it. I don't care how my body feels. I don't care if my legs fall off, right? Whatever happens, like, this has become like a life mission now. And when I say that, that sounds like a lot of responsibility. I think it is, but I just want to clarify that it's not something that it's like, okay, it's my life burden. It's my life mission, but it doesn't feel like a burden at all. Now, some days, you just don't want to go out of bed. You don't want to go outside. It's cold. It's whatever still.
Yeah.
But I knew I have to do it. I knew that there is, I discovered an opportunity, where I could really help people that just, it wasn't being met. And I was affecting so many people, and not just in minor ways, but in some cases, major ways. And if I don't go out on a day, if I decide not to do it anymore, I'm missing those opportunities. So I knew I had to do it at that point. That was probably the most impactful. And I've had a lot of powerful experiences since then as well. But he's a great guy. He's actually battling cancer, and he decided to stick with it, and he lived for about another year after that. He actually passed away back in October. I was able to go meet him, track him down. I think he tracked me down on Facebook at one point, but I was able to go by and meet him and meet with his family. It ended up being right before he passed away. But we just cried together, for a while.
Yeah.
And I'm crying now because of it. It will always be that, defining moment of this experience. And I really want to share it. And I want to, he really wanted to share his story as well. And he said, I can share it and things like that. But I haven't gotten to a point yet where I can, where I figured that out and working with his wife and things like that. But, there'll be more to come on that story because it's a powerful thing. And really just a great lesson to me that, what you're doing is important, and it's more important than you know.
Well, yeah, thank you for sharing the part of the story that you're able to, and that's huge. And what you said is so right about us just needing that little bit of validation to rekindle the fire, because I thought it was so funny. This was maybe the second time I saw you, and you were at the top of Overland Hill, and you just looked exhausted, holding up the sign above your head, and I just thought, man, and it just made me smile. And it wasn't a smile as in like, that guy's crazy. It made me think, how powerful is that to see how tired and how much you were fighting to keep the, and there was a line of cars, so you'd probably been holding that sign for a while above your head. And I believed you that you believed in me, even though we had never met. And there's something powerful in that we do believe in ourselves, and we really need that external that validation sometimes to know that. But every single one of us does have potential. And so those 4 words that just popped into your head for that sign could not have been more perfect. So
no, thank you for that.
That's amazing.
I probably was exhausted. It's a climb
It's a
up
big
there.
hill. That's people who don't know. So that's
On a
I.
funny
You
side
probably know
note,
better than me.
yeah. A funny side
It's
note,
got
like,
to be at least a half mile.
yeah, uphill. The uphill parts are hard.
Yeah.
But you have this mental picture of yourself, and sometimes I'll be running, and I'll listen to like some really good music, right? And you're feeling like really like you feel like you're in a movie running with like a battle banner, right? And you're rallying people, and it's just like an amazing experience. You have this mental picture, like you look, oh, I must just look, awesome right now. And then people snap pictures of you, and they're like, hey, I saw this guy, like he's running. Here's a picture, and I look like, just or like my face, it's hilarious. I feel. I feel majestic and inspiring in some of those moments. Other times I don't, but there's no way I look like it.
we, we view you as majestic and inspiring.
Oh, I appreciate
even though we,
like I'm really feeling fired up, and my outward appearance is probably like I'm dead. And it's not always like that, but yeah, sometimes when you see me, I might be 4, 5, 6 miles in, right, or more.
yeah.
It just depends, right? And well, if you would have seen me, like 20 minutes earlier, I would have been looking a lot happier. But I try to smile. I try to, to make eye contact with people without tripping, in a ditch. But yeah, it doesn't always look the way you think it should.
Well, it does, because there's something powerful about 2 arms above your head while you're running. Like anybody with 2 arms above their head while they're running, there's a lot of energy behind that, whether they're exhausted or not.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I think that's pretty awesome. And from what I understand, you've had a few people pick up a sign as well and start running in their own areas.
Yeah.
What would you, and this is coming from somebody who's thought, man, that would be such an amazing thing to experience, but I don't want to come across as disingenuous. I don't want to come across as an imposter to what you have done. What would you say to somebody like that?
Yeah, those kinds of people are my people. I do not own the message, and it's not something I want to own, right? So it's something that I believe in you, and the sign running thing. It's something that my goal. I wish there was someone like that in every city, right? So every morning people are leaving the house going out, that they could see one of us like that. And that's still my goal. Now, being having a full-time job and 5 kids and volunteering and all the different things that you do, it's not necessarily easy to make tons of progress in that all the time, although I am making progress and we'll be, doing some more of those things. But yeah, if it's definitely not, as being an imposter, I want as many imposters as possible. Right. And if you want the I believe in you and that's the message that resonates with you, totally fine. If you have your own message, whatever that is, that's fine as well. I want people to join me, for 2 reasons, right? You do a lot of good, number 1, but number 2 is it really improves how you feel about your life. It really does. It's not going to make you any money. It's not going to make you any of those other things. And none of those things really even matter, but it's going to improve the areas that matter the most. When you are involved in that process of bringing people out of the dumps mentally, and not only that, but probably, hundreds of people every time you go out, never realizing the full effects of some of those, things that you did. It makes you feel, I mean, it's an amazing feeling. I want everybody else to feel that, right? If you're out there running already and you're a runner, consider joining me, right? I mean, I'm not super athletic and I'm, in my 40s, but my body's holding up okay. Now, I don't want to get sued. If something happens to you, please don't sue me. Because I'm not making money from this, but
it's a great disclaimer.
Take the risks in mind. But You don't have to hold it above your head. You don't have to hold it down wherever. One of the guys, he does it, like he'll hold it up, and then sometimes he's tired, he just puts it on his shoulder, right? So everybody can see it this way. And there's all kinds of different ways you can do it. Whatever you can do, find a way to uplift somebody, right? And for me, this is such a cool thing too, because I was already running this. I didn't add, yes, it's harder, but I didn't add a new thing, like a whole new, I've got to do this whole thing and it's all separate from what I do. Like I just added the sign to what I was already doing. And it's amazing. I would love to be joined by that. And planning some different things and some different events. We have gotten together and run together from time to time, and gotten together, a few of us at the same time, and a couple of us having different messages. I want to do more of that, and I will be pushing that a lot this year. We did do some events this last year where we just got together and held signs right on street corners so that the people that can't run can do that. But yeah, please copy what I'm doing. And if you can get out there, and if you can run with the sign, you deserve all the credit. Right? So I definitely invite everybody to join me.
Well, great. Well, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And so if somebody wants to join you or join an event or wants to stay tuned for when those are, because a lot of the audience is local, would they just message you on Facebook? Is that the best way to get hold of you?
The most, I spend the most time on Instagram. My Instagram account, it's Runner Guy with a sign. And, I post, everything I'll be posting about that will be there, all the information and things like that. There's a good amount of work I need to do, but that's where you can stay up to date with the latest developments in the sign running cause.
Cool. Have you ever thought of doing like a relay, like a cross country past the sign? And that's probably a lot of planning.
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot. I think at this point, if you say, have you ever thought about in relation to this? I've probably thought about it because I think about this a lot. What other things could I be doing? Yeah, definitely. Now, like running across the country, I don't think that would work. I would probably die within the state boundaries. Oh, man. A relay race, though, we have talked about that. Other people, are wanting to plan that for this next year. So you might see a relay race. That's cool. Planning on doing a 5K as well, locally here. Cool. But yeah, and I'm also putting some effort and some thought into, putting maybe a actual registered charity together and things like that. But I want to do it in a way that makes sense. I don't want to do it in the typical way that everybody does it. It has to make sense for what we're doing. I'm putting a lot of thought into that. Eventually you might see some output.
Yeah.
And I just see it's so fun to do it. But it's also fun to see how it's spreading and how, teachers at the school have the sign and kids take turns running around at recess with it. Or people join me in runs, or people are doing, the exact same thing, but they're like, what you did inspired me to do a food drive in the neighborhood, or what you did inspired me to, all right, that's what I want. I want you to listen to that little voice that's telling you to do good things that are hard, that are challenges. Listen to it and do it. And that's what I want people to do, because everybody has their own unique way of doing it. For me, it's running. But, for you, it could be something completely different, but it's totally relevant to people that maybe I can't reach to that, right? There's probably some hard guys, probably guys like me, like see a guy running with a sign and think, I don't need stupid reminders and stupid inspirational quotes, right? I'm tough, right? I don't need that, right? So you might be able to reach them in a way that I can't, because that doesn't resonate with them. But yeah, just do the good thing that you want to do. I want to inspire that in other people.
That's great. Well, Ben, thank you so much for the phone call.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time, man.
Anytime.
You guys, thank you so much for listening all the way through. And right now I'm going to sell you on something. Ready? Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. And that's it. Thanks so much. Hope you have a good one. Catch you on the next Mentor Mountain. Bye.